Oh, and Jenny Hall somehow is in.
All right. Tracy, let's go ahead and kick things off in another 30 seconds.
All right.
Okay. I think open signal, let's go ahead and go live.
Okay, Sam, are you ready?
Are we open signal? Are we ready? Okay, we're ready.
Welcome everyone to the PCEF Grant Committee meeting. I'm Tracy Smith, your facilitator for this evening. Before we begin, we're going to go over some of the hybrid guidelines for our meeting this evening. This meeting is open to the public. The public will be invited to comment around 6:05. We will also have a break. Here it says 7 o'clock, but we will be breaking at 6:50 for about 15 minutes and coming back at 7:05. During that time, there won't be an online discussion. And a quick reminder for our guidelines to our virtual hybrid meeting. The chat box is used for those who are online or those who are in the room at PCC. If you have a computer, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And at other times, PCEF staff will be monitoring the chat function. For committee members, please raise your hand if you would like to share comments. And we ask that only committee members be on video. The microphones will be muted. This meeting is being recorded and we have captioning in place. So before we look at the agenda, I would like to start with introductions. And Sam, I'll start with folks from the committee who are online. And the first one I see is Alicia. If you could introduce yourself. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Alicia Chapman. I use pronouns like she and her. Happy to be with you all. I'm sorry I can't be there in person.
D'Angelo.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is D'Angelo Moning speaking. He, him. Glad to be here.
Megan.
Hi, everybody. This is Megan Horst, committee member and co-chair, she, her pronouns, and sorry not being there in person, but happy to be joining virtually.
Maria. Oh, I'm sorry. Maria, go ahead, and then I'll go back to Faith. I skipped Faith.
Hello, Maria Sippin. They are she pronouns, committee member.
Faith.
Good evening, everyone. Faith Graham, committee member, she, her pronouns. Thank you.
Sam, if you could take over introductions for those who are in the room with you.
Okay, I'll start with myself, Sam Brasso, PCEF program manager, he, him, and I'll send it over this way to Robin.
Good evening, Robin Wang, PCEF committee member, he, him.
Good evening, Michael Eden Hill, PCEF committee member, he, him.
Hi, everyone. Rain Fiestantino Viatoro, committee member, he, him pronouns, and I'll pass it over here.
Good evening, Paul Wemley, he, him, committee member.
Good evening, Ciara Pressler, any pronoun, consultant to PCEF.
Katie Lister, PCEF staff, and I, she, her pronouns.
All right, back to you, Tracy.
Okay, so our agenda for this evening, as I said, the public will be able to provide comments. If anyone from the public would like to comment, and if you're online, please put that in the chat so we can get a list of who would like to talk. And then Sam will let us know if anyone has signed up in the room. At 6:15, we'll have program updates. And then at 6:20, we'll go over the climate investment plan, and I'll be referring it to CIP here and after. And that will be updates on the fast track programs, and we'll be looking at two programs, strategic program number 1, as well as strategic program number 8. As of 6:50, a break that will go into 7:05. And then we'll look at a CIP evaluation draft approach for strategic program number 3, which is the clean energy and single family homes. At 7:50, CIP program rollout and prioritization. And at 8 o'clock, we will close. So at this point, a public comment. Sam, has anyone signed up in the room?
No, Tracy, they have not.
Okay, and what about chat or online?
I do not see anyone providing any interest in providing comment online via the chat.
All right, then we will move on to the meeting minutes. I wanted to check in. Normally at this point, we approve the meeting minutes. I wanted to make sure all the committee members, you've had a chance to review the minutes. If not, we can approve them at the next meeting. If anyone hasn't had time, could you let us know at this point? All right, then if someone could make a motion as well as another individual committee member seconding approval or additions to the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Can I get
second that motion?
Thank you, D'Angelo and Alicia. All right, we will take a vote at this point. So all those in favor of approving, or if anyone doesn't approve, let's just say that's, I see, Alicia, your hand is up.
I was just motioning to approve, sorry.
Oh, okay. If anyone doesn't approve, if you could let us know.
I abstain. I wasn't there.
And who was
Robin.
Is that Robin? Okay. All right. I think they're approved, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, Sam, moving on to you for general program updates.
Okay. I think just one, starting with obviously the obvious was just yesterday went to City Council and had a wonderful showing. Thank you to Ramfis and Robin from the committee who testified on behalf of the committee and just shared their perspectives to council. I think it was from just the fact that it went as smoothly as it did. It was all really, we've gotten already a little bit of feedback that it went really well, that folks are really receptive and responsive to what they heard. And I think in terms of some of the questions that were coming up, folks really came at it from the get-go and answered a lot of the questions that commission members and the mayor had heading into that session. So we're now scheduled for a second reading on the climate investment plan for next Wednesday morning council session. It's not a time certain session, so we'll be keeping track and watching it, but the agenda will likely get posted tomorrow, and so we'll see generally where we'll be, and we'll just keep track in terms of when we get up there. But it means that they're headed for a vote at least next week. So kudos, it's a big major step, and it's an important step in terms of us moving forward with our next RFP. A lot of the other work that we're going to be talking about here that's already underway in development, the work that we're already planning for, but it's certainly an important milestone that we're going to have to figure out how to celebrate. So you all will hear from us shortly after next Wednesday, depending on how the decision goes around just how we'll proceed and acknowledge the moment and share our gratitude with everyone that's come along the way with us on this journey. Separate and related, we've been actively staffing up. As many folks may have seen, we have about 5 recruitments currently out, several of which are going to close actually this coming Monday, focused on a lot of the folks that are going to be implementing and administering these projects and programs. And so a handful of them close on Monday, and then the remaining close this following Friday. And this is sort of our first tranche, and then as we move through this, we'll have another tranche of about probably 6 to 7 positions coming up shortly afterwards. And those will be more focused on the overall program. One will be focused on workforce contractor equity policies, communications positions, as well as some additional data and management positions to support some of that work. So, but as we're staffing up, We're also shortly going to just start to share some of the opportunities that staff have taken in terms of moving up within the work. And just want to acknowledge, for instance, David Granfield, who's going to be presenting later today on the equitable tree canopy, has stepped up and been supporting and taking a lead role alongside with James's support on the equitable tree canopy efforts. And so it's been wonderful to see folks really just deepen their skill sets and lead on a lot of these programs as we've shifted into planning and getting ready for implementation on a lot of these programs. And then related to that implementation, we've recently executed our interagency agreement with the Portland Housing Bureau as part of the program we're administering with them. We'll provide an update on Strategic Program 1 with you all here shortly later. And then we're just a couple weeks away from likely pulling together our interagency agreement with Portland Parks and Recreation to get that moving forward and set that in motion. And that's an important part for them to start hiring up the staff they need to administer that program and work in collaboration with community on implementing the program. And so as soon as council takes action next week, that's going to set us in motion in terms of working with PBOT, Prosper Portland, other entities in terms of working with interagency agreements so we can get that work moving forward, and then all the other work as well. I'm going to take a pause and just think through if there's anything else I'm missing.
The recruitments.
Ramfis.
A couple questions here on the hiring positions. What's the deadline for the contractor workforce position? And is that a combined position, contractor and workforce, or separate positions?
It's a good question. That position hasn't been created, Ramfis, so in many ways we'll be able to share that. It's the next tranche of ones that we want to roll out with after this current batch that's out right now. But we envision that being much more of a policy-oriented position that's really looking across our programs, making sure and supporting our staff and making sure our approach to capturing our metrics are right and balanced with our program needs, are consistent, are happening on a regular basis. And it's also helping us get that information together so that we can share it with stakeholders on a more timely basis. But the next step is putting that position description. So it'd be great to actually share that position description with you so that we can just make sure we're lining it up for the right candidates.
Great, yeah. I'm assuming Mike will probably be interested in D'Angelo, but definitely keep all of us posted on that position. Then I have a separate question, but beyond that.
Please.
In terms of the intergovernmental agreements, as they're being executed, will those be publicly displayed? Like, will they be on our website? Is that something that we'll get a chance to review just after the passage?
That's we'll certainly share those with you all, and I think we'll figure out a way to share them publicly as well. There's no reason that we shouldn't. So I think we'll start with certainly sharing with you all, and there's a little bit of still teasing out how we make sense of our website and where everything lands. I mean, it's been a perpetual piece, but absolutely. And we can start with sharing just the Housing Bureau interagency agreement, but the Parks one is just not quite there yet, but we'll be close.
All right, Sam, I don't hear or see any more questions. Did you have more to add to your presentation?
No. In this context, it's more just to say, I think we've been busy with this. Now we're parsing out, and we've been busy with the CIP. A subset of the team has certainly been actively working on RFP 3 as well, and that's what we've been busy just gearing up for that so that we can have that come out shortly. What we're aiming for is mid-November. But I think we're in for quite a bit in terms of the recruitment and interviews, and a lot of our work is just thinking through how do we get creative around managing the scale of recruitments that we're going to need to do. And equally the onboarding, and that's something we're in regular conversations with Ciara and Pregame about around how do we onboard the folks and make sure we can manage that growth in a way that feels good for everyone given the fact that it's fairly substantial growth.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is Katie and then David on the CIP track program updates.
Okay. Is this what's on YouTube? on the screen.
Yeah, they use, can we get the PowerPoint deck on the screen? Beautiful.
Thank you. Okay, can we go to the next slide? So this is just a pretty brief little program update about our strategic program number 1. You guys have, y'all have had some information about it already, but just wanted to give some more details. We do have the interagency agreement executed with Portland Housing Bureau around this one. And these are just, I mean, there are a number of other like details within the interagency agreement, obviously, but these are at a high level kind of the terms. So projects must be directly funded by PHB or OHCS. They must rent to tenants at 60% or below area median income. They have to maintain affordability for a minimum of 30 years. All of the PHB-funded projects have affordability requirements that are 99 years, but some of the ones that are not PHB-funded but got OHCS funding can have just 30-year affordability requirements. And this through strategic program number 1, we're only sort of doing new construction and major redevelopment for projects that have 20 or more than 20 units. The eligible uses of PCEF funds are sort of, the parameters there are that it's up to 10% of total hard construction cost can be used for energy efficiency, renewable energy, and really to a lesser extent, storage, electric vehicle charging, and tree planting. So those are allowed. They have been like relatively minor components, or if at all, of what we've seen. And what PCEF funds are paying for is the cost difference between the code and the lower energy use alternative. So there's a fair amount of work that we're doing with the developers and with folks from Earth Advantage to sort of do that modeling to understand both the energy difference and kind of an estimated cost differential there. The full cost for, but the full cost could be covered for energy efficiency and renewable energy where there's no code requirement. So for solar, for example, PCEF funds could be used to pay for the entire thing. Next slide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Robin.
Are these going to be considered not net zero? I'm sorry, the zero energy building.
Zero.
Sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah. There's kind of, it's a mix. A lot of the affordable housing projects go for some sort of certification, but it's not all the same thing. None of the ones that we're seeing are currently getting all the way to net zero, but a lot of them are kind of like shooting for LEED Platinum or for, I mean, there's a handful of other kind of certifications that they're going for. And this is what we have funded to date. We should really get this on a map. But just to give you a sense of the projects, they're, the total sort of number of units that will be impacted by PCEF funding so far, 846, and with about $15.5 million in investment. You can see the last one there on the list, Hollywood Hub, is $7 million. So that was like the biggest one where we were able to kind of get the deepest in terms of energy improvements. These, if you'll recall, phase 1 projects were already kind of pretty far along in their development and design process by the time they knew that PCEF funds were available. So there are some things where we weren't able to maybe get as deep energy savings as if we had, you know, been there from the beginning. But you can see it's a lot of high efficiency heating and cooling, some solar, some EV chargers, tree planting beyond what is required, and so. Yeah, and in Hollywood Hub's case, we were able to get above code insulation in there as well. Next slide. Any questions about that, actually? Ranfis?
This is great. You know, I think it'll be helpful down the road to know, looking at this, seems like $15 million investment. And a lot of the common themes here are heating and cooling. So just kind of, we'll be curious down the road, like what are the inroads for inclusive career pathways for women and people of color in those jobs? I know, just kind of just looking at the macro outcomes here. I'm definitely interested, given some of like the state conversations around just making permitting easier for developers. It'd be great to get an update down the road, just how PCEF dollars are sort of tackling both funding these units and tree planting when, the state might have different policies around just creating more flexibility of whether or not developers have to do some tree planting. So it'd be helpful to know how our policies are in alignment with some shifting policies around some of the stated goals from the state of Oregon to get more units and loosen the restrictions for tree planting and other green components. So I hope that question makes sense, but just kind of would be interesting to know what's going on here in all the shifting landscape.
Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think what I would it's an important question, and it's something that I know the rest of our bureau is, within the Bureau of Planning and Sustainable, is actively tracking in terms of whether it's the tree code or other various building code and other requirements of building that certainly have implications on development. So we're keeping track of those. I mean, certainly we come on the other side of it, is where we're incentivizing more things happening, but it's something that we consistently check in with our colleagues just to see where things are at, given the interface we have with projects, and we serve as an incentive to push projects to go above and beyond, and yet we know there are many projects we don't touch. And so as we hear how things are playing out and whether there's a gap that we're supporting, we can certainly communicate that.
Yeah, if I just may, I guess the above and beyond component, that's like my real question in the long run, knowing that the above and beyond is kind of shifting. That's I think just the update as we're further along around implementation, that above and beyond seems to be shifting around
the baseline, because the baseline moves. The baseline may be dropping lower.
Correct.
It's a great point. It's something we'll absolutely be keeping track of. I think right now, just to name it for the record, I think right now those are all conversations that are happening, but I think we're all seeing the direction of those, and we're keeping track.
Megan?
Yeah, I just have a question or a comment, maybe along a similar line to Rand pieces, in terms of, this is all really great, like just to kind of get this breakdown of units and kind of amount. In terms of just like updates and knowing things, I think Rand piece brought up some great things for the future. And then I would love to know, so these are new buildings, so there's not like a pre and post comparison on utility bills, but if there's any way to like track, like, one of the goals of PCEF is lower energy costs for residents. So I'm just curious about that down the line as like, hopefully, a big outcome of all of these efforts. So it's probably a more down the line request.
Yeah, I can say, Megan, for all of these, we do have energy modeling sort of with what they thought what they would do without PCEF money, and then what they will be able to do with PCEF money. And then, there's a commissioning that happens when the buildings are done, where we'll be able to actually see, like, did they do exactly what they said they were going to do kind of over the course of construction, and what is the actual modeled energy use of the building look like kind of at the end of the day. There utility bills we won't be able to compare because, to your point, there were no pre-utility bills. But we definitely can we would definitely will be reporting the energy savings. Anything else? Oh, Paul?
I was surprised to see that there were not that many EV chargers, and I realize it's probably because they didn't ask for it, but I was wondering if there are incentives that we're providing to encourage people to put more EV charging stations?
I think one of the reasons that we're not seeing a lot of EV charging on this list is because there are so many other people who are willing to pay for EV charging. And so I think I think that you will be seeing in new affordable housing developments, EV charging infrastructure, but there are some other sources. I also just wanted to note that I think one of these, and I can't remember which, so I would have to, check back there, but one of them is both car EV charging and secure bike EV charging, or bikes as a vehicle, I guess, bike charging. So it's both of those. But yeah, we could also check back and see which of these projects actually just includes EV charging being paid for by some other source. But that's what we're seeing. That is one of the things that we're seeing a lot of. I did, Paul, follow up on I think it was your comment about the sort of in the theft from EV charging stations that were not secure, and have yet to find, that there is someone figuring out some clever engineering solution, but I have definitely been keeping that in my mind too. Okay. So these are the phase 2 development considerations. So we're currently in conversation with Portland Housing Bureau, with developers, with our partners at Earth Advantage and New Buildings Institute, and other kind of energy modeling, think tanky, building science types of people to try and figure out what the best phase 2 looks like that gets us to those net zero buildings. And so right now the considerations are these are just sort of like, I guess, points about that conversation. We are hoping that conversation, that we'll have something that we can kind of a draft to put out to get feedback from different stakeholder groups in the next couple of months, and then be able to sort of like distribute more broadly and say firmly, okay, like now we have a definition for phase 2. So if you are, at this point in your development process, you have access to funds in this way, which means that you'll be probably able to access more funds to do deeper energy improvements to the building. Hopefully we'll be getting people earlier in the process, so we'll be able to influence design, some design decisions that create those greater opportunities for both savings and resilience. Wendy Kelfkin, who is our Clean Energy Project Manager, has been facilitating a lot of working groups and working with researchers and other members of the team, trying to evaluating this sort of a prescriptive versus performance-based program design, really just trying to nail down what gets us to net zero in these buildings that will probably still be operating 100 years from now. And if they're PHB funded, will be affordable, for all but one of those years. So we're in the midst of that, so stay tuned. We're evaluating the costs and the benefits of PCEF funds in new construction that includes gas. To be clear, PCEF funds are not available to invest in high efficiency, in phase 2, we've said PCEF funds won't be available to invest in high efficiency fossil fuel powered equipment. But there has been some conversation around, like, would we even invest in a building if it included fossil fuels in it? Or would we say, in order to access our funds, you have to be building an all-electric building? There are some considerations around hot water and some other stuff just in bigger buildings that we are evaluating, not just the financial costs and benefits, but also the sort of like comfort and use and lifetime costs and benefits of putting money into a building that has some gas in it. We're incorporating consideration of embodied carbon of material selection, and making sure that we're understanding both the cost impact and also just the availability of materials, so that we're not delaying things, forever and unnecessarily by requiring something that's too hard to get. Incorporating PCEF specific reporting and workforce standards and training requirements Phase 1 complies with Portland Housing Bureau workforce and sort of their workforce equity and reporting requirements. So these Phase 2 ones will have our standards in there. And the Phase 2, the last Phase 2 consideration up there is incorporating PCEF input on overall project selection. So the next time there's a request for applications or a NOFA for units, for affordable housing units, PCEF will be as like a co-funder of that, as the clean energy part of that funding availability will be at the table to be able to be part of making the decision about which of those projects gets selected for funding. And those are all of the considerations. I meant to add a bullet that was, Sam asked me to, and I forgot, sorry, to add a bullet that really tried to drive home the point that we really do want to try and, what we're trying to figure out is how to get these buildings to net zero, and how to do that in a way that is, cost effective for PCEF, and that the market can kind of, that the market can do and doesn't slow them down too much. And so just wanted to, I guess, make that point since I forgot to add the bullet.
And maybe I'll just add, as folks think about that North Star of getting to developing buildings that are consuming no more energy than they produce, it's possible. I mean, we know that PHB has seen proposals to do that from housing developers. It's just costly, and it's not all of them. So there's few of them that both have the interest and skill set, and so there's both a learning element to it, and then there's the finding that sweet